Welcome to episode 10 of the podcast, and this is the second installment of our macronutrient episodes, and we're going to be talking all about fats today. And like carbs, throughout history they've had a bad rep, but they are really important. So we're going to discuss their roles in our body. We're going to talk about the different types of fats, as I think there's so many words you hear in marketing like saturated, unsaturated, heart healthy, omegas, and it is a bit confusing. So we'll try and break that down in an easy to understand way. And we'll talk about how our body uses fat for energy, and we'll probably relate it a little bit back to the carbohydrate episode in terms of, the energy systems and what our body, prefers to use for fuel. And we can talk a little bit more about keto. So yeah, let's dive into it. And I know I've never done keto, but Andy, you used to be quite big into keto.
Yeah, it works well for me, probably due to blood glucose problems.
Yeah.
Generally, I can go without sweet things as long as I don't like Coke Zero.
Yeah.
It don't bother me. I can see someone eating cake. I've got a real sweet tooth when I'm eating it, but I'm pretty good at ignoring it. What I do find hard is things like I can't live without, things like a bit of red meat, I crave, sort of those things. So keto was great for me in general, as in, I can, I was having a lot of, chicken, steak, salads and stuff, lots of vegetables. And it worked really well. I'm relatively low carb even now. I probably, after cardio, go into ketosis, in some way, because, we keep my carbs low, my fats generally high during my prep anyway. Yeah. And even in the off season, relatively speaking, my carbs now, on a low day, I think they're 135 grams. On a high day, 175 grams. But my fats are higher, normally about 70 grams. So, so generally, I do, but as we've spoken about, my hereditary blood glucose issues is, I need to be a bit more wary of the carbohydrate size. So I increase the amount of fat into my diet via good fats, really, via omega oils and essential fatty acids.
Yeah, you've done keto as well. I mean,
I experimented with it.
Yeah.
It was out of desperation for my first prep, and it was just one of those you feel like you're not getting lean quick enough, and it's a first prep. You're confused. I'm doing too much.
Well, it's
cardio.
kind of like everyone thinks like keto is superior for fat loss. So
yeah,
is
so
that why you did it?
No. So it was yes, and I had a friend who competed, and he always prepped on keto. So, but thing is, he understood.
Very traditional bodybuilding thing, low carb.
Yeah.
Like bodybuilders invented the keto diet essentially. All the guys in the 90s would go almost zero carb for their whole preps.
Yeah, it's just that he knew what he was doing. This was my first prep, so I was very apart from the nutrition knowledge from uni of keto is this and carbs are this and that. I didn't really know how to relate to it as to bodybuilding, so I just did cut off carbs, put in lots of veggies. It was good because I really overdid the veggies. I don't think there's any time in my life I've eaten more veggies than when I was doing
I suppose that's where the keto diet's good for that sort of eating more vegetables. What people don't realize is you've got to be careful with your protein intake, because the protein then converts to a carbohydrate by glucogenesis, as we spoke about last week. which then you won't be in ketosis anyway. But
Yeah.
the reality is people don't really care if they're in ketosis or not. We think they do. We get told we should care. We have the old wheat strips and stuff. The reality is most people just want to lose body fat.
Yeah.
And by removing a whole food group from the diet, you kind of just massively lowering your calories, and backfilling them with green leafy vegetables or fibrous vegetables, so you're satiated. So
yeah. Well, I think we'll get into keto later, because I think a lot of people, when they think of keto, they're like, oh, I'll eat just loads of bacon. And
my dad did that. My dad loved keto. He tried keto. He did the Atkins diet. I remember this when the Atkins diet was a thing. He did it. He loved it because he would just have like bacon and sausage.
Wow.
He lost loads of weight. Though, and it worked really well. But I hate to think about the health implications of, processed meats, lots of saturated fats. Discuss that a bit more. But
I was on bacon and peanut butter through prep. Best prep ever, man.
Well, at least that's semi-balanced. But I hope by the time we get to the end of the podcast, you'll realize that if you are someone who prefers high fat, how you can balance your fats out so that you include different types. Fat is such an important macronutrient, and it provides us with a lot of energy. It is the most energy dense of the macronutrients. So for every gram of fat, you get 9 calories. So to put that into perspective, protein and carbs per gram are 4 calories. So fat is very energy dense. It is really important in helping us to make hormones, particularly your sex hormones. It helps us with forming cell membranes. And I mean, when you think about it on the surface of it, like, is that important? But as we carry on, you'll see how important that is. And it's also, fats help us with our brain and nervous system. And they help transport fat-soluble vitamins, E,
and K.
Okay. And they give us 2 fatty acids that we cannot get from our diet. Those are, I think, I always say it wrong, linoleic and
alpha linoleic
and linolenic. Those are omega-3 and 6s. And we will talk about how important those are. So fats are massively important. And if people are on low-fat diets, and you'll often see hormones suffer. You get what's called brain fog. You just can't concentrate because, like we said in the last podcast, our body's preferred fuel source is glucose. But we can use fat, and we will talk about that. So I think let's get into the different types of fat. I mean, very, very basic kind of biochem lesson is that fats are a hydrocarbon chain, and they have hydrogen atoms attached to that. And a really kind of nice analogy is like a parking lot. So if you think of all the parking spaces filled with cars, that's saturated. Those are saturated fats. And because they can pack nice and tightly, they're solid at room temperature. So think your butter,
coconut
oil, the fattier cut, the fat on meats. So those are saturated fats. And unsaturated fats you can think of as missing those hydrogen atoms, or like all the car parks aren't full. And due to that nature, they don't pack as tightly. So they're more fluid at room temperature. So those are more your oils, like olive oil, sunflower oil. And I like, this is a good fact, like for, like salmon and fish that live in like freezing water, those fats act like antifreeze in their blood. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because otherwise they'd freeze.
Nice.
So those unsaturated fats are then divided into monounsaturated fats. So that's they've got one carbon that doesn't have a hydrogen attached to it. And that's like olive oil. Then you've got your polyunsaturated, so there's more than one that doesn't have hydrogen attached to it. And those are essentially your omegas. I love the word omega. It just, I don't know, it sounds so good. So I think a lot of people think that saturated fats are bad, and especially in the 80s and 90s, fats just had bad reputation in general. I think that's when all the Atkins and whatnot really popular. And it was all low fat, and saturated fat was like, ooh, associated with cholesterol and
cardiovascular disease.
Yeah. And it's, you know, everything in balance, of course. And, you know, your foods are a combination of these different types of fats. And there was an interesting, I was reading about how eggs, everyone's like, oh, eggs have loads of cholesterol and saturated fats. But actually, they're only 39% saturated fats. They're 43% monounsaturated fats, and 18% polyunsaturated fats. So a lot of foods are a combination of them. So like, oh, don't eat too many eggs, they've got cholesterol. And I think, Andy, you're the cholesterol man here. I won't say much about it. I'll let you talk about cholesterol, but our body actually makes most of our cholesterol. It's not from the diet. And most people tend to forget that. The cholesterol in eggs, we can actually not digest very well.
Yeah, and to be fair, you know, an egg's like a perfect meal. It's got like a bit of everything in there. It's got all, loads of business nutrients. It is a balance in itself. What happens in an egg is to create, you know, technically is the nutrients create a living being. So, you know, it is balanced, you know, so you've got your LDL and HDL and it just balances itself out. You know, so everyone who overly worries about eggs is a little bit nuts. What you do realize is eggs don't have a great deal of protein in a whole egg. As in, you've got to eat a lot of them. This is, you know, but fat-wise, are really good. Like, you know, I always say this: if you're only eating eggs for your protein source, you're gonna have to eat a lot, and you probably want to get onto egg whites because you will get, you know, a lot of calories per egg, but in comparison to volume. But no, you know, I'm a massive fan of eggs.
You quickly said like HDL, LDL. Can you go into more depth on that? Because people probably.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm a bit of a mental block. HDL is your good cholesterol. Your LDL is your bad. But you know, but there is no good and bad really. It's, you know, it all serve a purpose. Right. So yeah, but that's kind of how they're commonly termed. And so when you look at your lipids profiles, you know, when you take blood, you have LDL levels, HDL levels, and then the ratio. The only thing that actually matters is that ratio number. Because LDL is the cholesterol that builds up on plaque on the walls of your arteries. HDL actually transports that out of the body. So you normally see an increase in LDL with high intake of dairy, for instance. Now, I know I was making a lot of clotted cream around Christmas and my blood's taken and my LDL was really high. But I was still good because my HDL was even higher because I was eating other good stuff outside of that. So, you know, HDL is a transport cholesterol, essentially. You know, it carries out the LDL. You know, it also, you know, you have to have these lipids as part of the fatty acid chain. So, you know, they are like, you know, a byproduct of the fatty acids. They get bounced around the body, you know, doing a role. You know, you can't have even good fats, you know, will give you cholesterol. And we want cholesterol, you know, but it's about having that ratio balance of LDL versus HDL. You know, you want more HDL than LDL. So it doesn't really matter if your LDL levels come back in blood tests being really high, as long as you're getting all your other good omega oils in, and you know your HDL levels are really high.
I think, especially like for you, if you exercise, it's not that big of a worry, because a lot of people, I guess, when you get bloods here, there's no like sport specific doctor, so to speak, who can sort of advise,
Yeah.
this is high, this is low, but your ratio is good because you're a rugby player, bodybuilder, whatever. So
Yeah,
I
because
think that's
exercise helps that breakdown.
yeah.
Yeah, and cholesterol is so important, again, especially with, the sex hormones.
Hormones, yeah.
So again, like, you need cholesterol, and I think it's just everyone's like, oh, my cholesterol is high, oh, gotta avoid the eggs, and you're like, you need cholesterol, and a lot of high cholesterol is genetic. It's not to do with your egg.
I have this conversation with my mum so often. She's always going, oh, my cholesterol's a bit high on my last blood test. I was like, not really, mum. So I've looked at the results. I'm like, well, look, and there is a fear, and it is coming back to them. Like, you got to realise people, like when I was a kid in the 80s, it was all about low fat diets. You'd hear it everywhere. Reduce fat this, reduce fat that. And my mum grew up in that, being told cholesterol's bad.
Yeah.
And no one explained that there's two types. And I'd always say, she go, I can't eat that. My cholesterol will go up. It's like, it's a natural thing, mum. It's like eggs is a classic. It's eggs, mum. You will get good cholesterol out of it when it gets broken down by your body. You need that for the hormone production. It is all to do with the breakdown of fatty acids and fatty acid chains. So those things are used in for hormone production.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, very generally, you can change your lipid profile, like, and you touched on, like, if you do eat more saturated fats, you will increase the LDL. But if you increase your omega-3s and you generally have a less processed, more whole food diet, you can balance out that lipid profile. So
and the exercise helps. Exercise helps because, as you said, our body produces cholesterol as part of our sort of breakdown of cells and things, the membranes in cells. So when we're exercising, we are methylating and breaking down cells and recreating cells, and that that forms part of that.
I mean, our liver is just incredible what it does. It's amazing. So liver controls all of that.
Exactly. Liver's amazing.
It's incredible. We'll get more into the liver when we look at sort of the metabolism of fats, but I think let's go to the polyunsaturated fats. So we've said saturated fats, they're okay. Yeah, they're not sort of the devil, and you want to have a balance of them. And I think the polyunsaturated are always called your good fats, and those are mainly your omegas. And I think a lot of people, you've probably heard of the omega-3s, because there's a lot of omega-3 supplements, and they're like your flax seeds, chia seeds, from your cold water fish like salmon, algae. And they are anti-inflammatory, and they're great for your immune and your nervous system. And this is where they're very important for your cell membranes. They help keep them fluid, which is important, like in your brain, for certain neurochemicals to go across. They help with insulin sensitivity. So they dilate the blood vessels as well. So they lower inflammation. They dilate the airways, and they prevent blood coagulation. And Andy, you there's all sorts of different omega-3s, and there it gets a bit, you've got like ELA and DHA. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Well, so I'm not an expert on DHA, but with our omega-3s, the important, it's something I tell clients, it's like they should be our main go-to fats, really, as in the diet, especially when you are in in a deficit. You want to be getting most health bang for your buck in the deficit. So we always say, try and remove, obviously eat less processed food, remove fats from, use lean protein sources, and then add the fats back in via omega-3s, like a seed oil or nut oils. But so now I'm trying to remember, there's like loads of DHEA is, do you know what it stands for?
I can't even say it. I can't.
Yeah, it's like really long, dehydro, whatever. You got rid of that. It's something I've got to read out because it's really long.
It is. Hang on. Let's find what.
You made some notes.
Okay, so we have. Wait, that's saturated. Okay, so.
For the guys listening to the audio, clear is just.
I'm trying to find. It's docosahexaenoic acid.
Is it?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And then we have the alpha linolenic acid, and then we have eicosapentaenoic acid. Oh my gosh. So yeah, flax, chia, hemp, walnuts are rich in there. ALA.
Yeah, so nut oils. And when you get a supplement, Dr. Dean talks a lot about this because he's just designed an omega supplement. Yeah. It's actually about ratios.
Exactly, yeah.
Just remember.
And it's about having the correct ratio.
Yeah, what do you want more of? I can't remember.
Just, I guess for guys listening, just remember the abbreviations.
Yeah. We don't convert the ALA to EPA, DHA well. So the dietary sources, you want EPA. So that's your eicosapentaenoic acid, which is, that's like salmon, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's exactly EPA. It's the fish. Krill, fish oils.
Yeah.
Most people don't eat krill, but you can get a good krill supplement. And and you got to be careful about people buy cod liver oil supplements and stuff from the shop. And the problem is these oils do go actually rancid. They're not very well stored.
Yeah.
And one of the things is with cod liver oil and stuff like that is actually not the best source of EPA. Something like salmon oil or krill oil is better, but you shouldn't really scrimp on the cost of your fish oil or your omega supplement because it is down to those ratios, and we want more EPA, but they also to do with storage and how they're processed to make sure you don't damage the oil molecules.
I think that's the one supplement here a lot of people are advised to buy, because I guess fish like salmon here is not cheap.
Nile perch, I've told you before, most oily, one of the most oily fish in the world, and it's freshwater, and it's caught in Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nile perch. Yeah, but you can still go for your. Yeah, I mean, you can still get your flax and your chia.
No, flax I use a lot. I like soak when I'm in off season. I use flax a lot, and I soak it, and then blend it in a smoothie.
Yeah, nice. I think that's key that you do blend it. Otherwise, it just goes straight through you.
Yeah,
exactly. The membrane's too hard to digest.
Yeah,
that's why you soak it and blend it, because it makes it easier.
Yeah, seeds are amazing in that way. And
nuts, as we know, though, nuts are packed with.
They are.
Nuts are packed, but that's why they're so calorie dense.
Yep.
Yeah. But then, so that kind of takes us to the omega-6s. So these are like the opposite of omega-3s. So they're pro-inflammatory. So they constrict blood vessels and airways and increase inflammation. And that all sounds bad, but we do need that.
Yeah.
And we need a balance of omega-6s and 3s. And just with kind of modern lifestyle and highly processed foods, our balance of the ratios favors omega-6s.
Yeah.
So we just need to watch out and balance those. So, I mean, omega-6s are like your vegetable oils, corn oil, canola oil. So they're not bad, but you want to balance it out. And I think a lot of nuts have omega-6s. Macadamias have the best ratio of omega-3s to 6s. And we're lucky enough here in Kenya that we
I use mac oil.
Use it in your hair.
Mhm.
Beard growth, but
It's also I actually use mac oil in hair.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
my beard though.
macadamias are amazing nuts. I think cashews have the worst ratio. Not to say they're a bad nut, just that their ratio is higher.
They're tasty nut.
Degrees,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cashews are a kryptonite. I don't think I can.
You know those honey-coated ones?
Yes.
That out of Africa, honey-coated roasted cashews. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So.
But anyway, yeah.
No.
So you can just look. I mean, it's interesting when you look at nuts. Like walnuts have got a lot of omega-3s, but those are hard to get here. But I think just keep in mind you need both. You need a balance, but they are really important.
And there's also omega-9, which we need less. Omega-9, which we need less of. So 3, 6, and 9 are your main omega oils. So omega-9 is has one double carbon bond.
Mm-hmm.
It's a monosaturated fat source, but it's high in oleic acid.
Mm-hmm.
But we need the least amount of omega-9.
Okay. Nice. So I mean, omegas they're just named for where the double bond is without the hydrogen.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact there. Then we have, I think we can call these bad fats, the trans fats.
Yeah.
Those are artificially made saturated fats. So if you remember saturated fats, they're sort of stable and solid at room temperature. They don't oxidize or go bad easily, or rancid, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they artificially add hydrogen to unsaturated fats like vegetable oils to make them more solid at room temperature. Think margarine.
Yeah.
And they just change the way our body uses fats and digests them. They can lower the good cholesterol. They can increase our own cholesterol production. And they are scientifically associated with sort of chronic diseases. They do good.
It's like I always advise, because I know a lot of people in Kenya use Blueband, and I always say, do you know it's like one molecule away from being plastic? It's literally one molecule away from being plastic. We do so much processing, and it's so. And I understand, and this is why you don't need to refrigerate Blueband. That's why it's sold on the shelves, because it's essentially plastic you're spreading in your toast.
It's
horrible stuff.
It is a bit different now, because I grew up on Blueband. So.
But you were told it was.
See, but here's the thing: I grew up on something called Stork margarine back in the 80s and 90s. Like butter was out.
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, it was butter. No, you're not allowed butter. Too bad for you. Margarine's better for you.
It's interesting. You actually told margarine is,
Yeah, and they injected it with thing is, it used to be a bit of a given. They used to inject it with, it's full of vitamin A, and E and stuff. And they added that in. And then it became sort of flora, because then we realised actually margarine's really shit.
Yeah.
Butter's actually great. We only have butter at home because I'd rather have natural source. It's like when cars having toast, have butter rather than plastic on your toast. But I grew up on Stork and other margarines, and it became like flora. And now my mum still refuses to use butter. Maybe keeps the flora.
So ingrained that sort of don't have that, and no one. I don't think anyone got healthier in the 80s and 90s. No one lost more weight in the 80s and 90s because you were eating all this other stuff, or now going to more processed foods or sugary foods. So in the end, as always, energy balance prevails in terms of that.
100%.
Which takes us nicely into how we use fats for energy. So if you remember from last week, our body breaks down dietary carbohydrates into glucose. That's what our body likes to use for fuel. So with fats, they're broken, and you've heard Andy talk about, they're broken down into fatty acids. That's what our body can use for fuel, the fatty acids. And that's from something called a triglyceride. And that's 3 fatty acid chains with a glycerol. So that's what our body can use for energy. And so when we digest fat, it's transported in the bloodstream, which is water-based. And as you probably know, fat and water, they do not mix. So that's where fats are carried into things called lipoproteins. And those then take into the cells for energy or for storage. But their fats are made in the liver as well. Again, the liver is amazing. It all goes down in the liver. So the process of triglycerides being turned into fatty acids for energy is called lipolysis. And then the reverse from fatty acids back into triglycerides, which would be for storage, is triglyceride synthesis. And so when we exercise, there's a lot of hormones and signals telling, wherever the fat is stored or from the liver to start lipolysis, to release those fatty acids that we can use for energy. And that's like growth hormone, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and that's how fat burners work. Like they are stimulants. They're kind of telling your body, we're exercising, or that fight or flight. You need to move, release all these fatty acids for energy. So people sort of can drink or have their fat burner, but if you're not exercising, all those fatty acids are going to be like, well, you ain't using us. We're just going to go back to storage. So it's if you use a fat burner and exercise, like coffee, for example, and exercise, that will work. But if you just go back, if you just think you're going to burn fat by having a fat burner and sitting on the couch, no.
Here's the thing.
No, I was just remembering one of many experiments with ketosis, and I tried out a fat burner, and I think after 3 days I couldn't handle it, because I would take it and then wait. It says 45 minutes an hour before you train. Then after like 20 minutes, I'm just sweating, and I'm like, is this, in my head, obviously it wasn't, but you're like, maybe this is why they call it a fat burner. And
because your sweat.
Yeah, and you can really see how they market it to people, because you sit, you take it, you sweat, then you're probably not eating enough, and you're thinking, I'm sweating because I'm burning fat.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And I was just like, wow, this it just raises your core temperature, and you plays with your head. And I guess marketing makes sales. It's good for the sales. And
exactly. The important thing I think to remember is that when we're exercising, we're creating loads of biological reactions, and fats are needed for that. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Eicosanoids. Eicosanoids. Leucosanoids. They are like what controls biological reactions in the body. But they need essential fatty acids to make those and create that. And that process of methylation, where we're breaking down cells and we're creating new cells. There's lots of chemical long names in this. Lipids. Phospholipids are like the cell membranes, which are made from fatty acids. So what happens with the energy is, first, we have to release these fatty acids to recreate cells at a quicker rate. So we're using glucose at the same time. We're using fatty acids to try and make cell membranes and biological reactions and release hormones through this process. Then once the glucose is used, we've still got these fatty acids traveling around, and they're in the bloodstream. So serving the purpose of these sort of cell rejuvenation, but actually that's when we start using them for energy once we've used up all that glucose stores and that glycogen. So but with the initial releases for this sort of biochemical reactions that are going throughout our bodies, I think, it just shows how important fats are, because we wouldn't have any biological process without those essential fatty acids.
They're key. And if you remember, like the three energy systems, they're all running together. It's just that fats. So the process of turning fatty acids into energy is called oxidation. Just if you hear us say fat oxidation, that's what it means. But fat oxidation is a very slow process. It's efficient, but it's very slow and it requires oxygen. So as we said before, the body's preferred fuel source is glucose. And like Andy said, when that runs out, now fatty acids become really important. And it's also our preferred fuel source when we're not doing much, like us now. We'd be using more fatty acids than glucose because we're not doing, anything extremely energetic.
We should do a podcast while doing cardio.
Yeah.
That must be like that.
Yeah. So when we're active, we need more energy than fatty acids can provide, basically. So again, like that's what we said last week. When you kind of hit a wall, that's when you've run out of your glucose, and then it's a slower process now for fat oxidation. And so it is hard. Like if you are a performance athlete on low carb, it is difficult because you're not going to get energy quickly because it's a long process from fat digestion, to absorption, because it's got to be put into these lipoproteins, and it is more difficult to break down. So just keep that in mind. Like it's
not very efficient actually. It's hard to find any athlete who depends on say fat sources for their training.
You won't find any like top flight athlete doing keto. Bodybuilding is slightly different because it's about how you look. But like in the off season when you're trying to build muscle, you won't find the bodybuilder on keto.
Nope. And so again, kind of touching on last week, like if you have a diet high in carbohydrate, you're going to have more insulin in the bloodstream, which impairs fat oxidation, the using of fat for energy. So dietary fat is stored, but that doesn't mean that's going carbs are making you fat. And likewise, if you are low fat, your body is going to be using more fat because there is not much glucose there. So it's going to preferentially use the fat you get from your diet. But that's where you've got to remember, if you are exceeding, your calories out with calories in, even if it's from dietary fat and you're burning dietary fat, you're still going to store some. So it's overall that net balance, like fat storage and fat oxidation.
This is where people get it wrong. Like they go, "Oh, I'm just having, having nuts as a snack." Like I love nuts, especially give me a cashew nut, delicious. But the fact is, they're so calorie dense. It's so easy to go over in your calorie expenditure. And how many times have you taken on say, "Oh, I eat healthy," and you go over what they're eating? It is healthy. As in, it's full of nutrients, it's nutrient-dense food.
Yeah.
But it's excessive calories in versus their calories out.
And it's so easy to eat nuts and fats. Like I always say, it's amazing if you are at maintenance or going into a surplus and you're trying to increase fats. It's the easiest place to get that extra energy is from the fats because they're so calorie dense without filling you up. Like an easy way to add in 100 calories is some, a tablespoon of olive oil, like you do with your mince, or like putting some pumpkin seeds or some flax seeds into your, you're not going to feel full, but they're really calorie dense.
Exactly.
So just remember, like I said at the beginning, every 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. Protein and carbs are 4. So So it's always good to keep that in mind when you're, trying to sort of figure out your diet and what to eat. And, different people do better on higher carb, lower fat. But just remember, in the end, in terms of any diet superior for fat loss, it doesn't matter. You've got to adhere to calories in, calories out. But just find what ratio works best for you. Like if you're into performance, you probably do better on more carbs. But some people just love fats, and do better eating more fats in their diet. I personally find it quite hard to eat high carb. I find it easier to get in more fats.
Like you add a bit of avocado, some nuts, some seeds. You've had a big square dark chocolate.
Yeah, eggs. I just laugh at poor old eggs. I eat 3 whole eggs every single day generally. And they've just had such a bad rap. What documentary was it? What the Health? And they're like, eggs is like smoking cigarettes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, how? Eggs are wonderful.
Yeah, there's stupid
It's just that whole sort of cholesterol and saturated fat argument. Like saturated fat is, if you can get pasture raised, meat and fattier cuts, that's good for you. I mean, you don't want to be eating that all day. You still want more of the, the unsaturated fats in your diet. But, a bit of butter, a nice fatty cut of meat, it's not.
I always say this, the reality is the human body is created as diet, but of that, a big portion of human evolutionary diet was animal fats.
Yeah.
Not like how some people eat red meat like every single meal, but the fact is, the human body was made to eat their, animal fats, be it, a fatty cut. As long as we then balance that out with all the seed oils and all the vegetables, it's fine, And I always tell people, eat a bit of what you like. I have clients that worry about cheese. And it's like, well, do you digest it well? Yes. Well, do you like it? Yes. Well, then you should be eating it. I don't understand why you wouldn't eat it. If it's something you like, eat. Unless you're a competitor who's got a show coming up, enjoy your food.
I was listening to a podcast, and one of the doctors on protein was saying, on like fats and protein at the expense of people, fighting for a cause, rather than think of the cause, they end up attacking these macronutrients without the right correct.
Just Bio Lane.
Yeah, you had that.
No, he's always saying. I listen to a lot of stuff. He gets really upset because people say vegetables are bad for you nowadays.
Yeah, because Dr. Lehman put it very amazingly. It's like, rather than continue fighting your cause, you start attacking a macronutrient that is essential to life.
Yeah.
And you find, it's usually protein and fats, which are found in a lot of animal products. So
and that's it. It's easy to say, because there is a sort of animal welfare issue, and I understand. I'm fully supportive of people that, for humane reasons, won't eat animal products. But again, when people say it's healthier not to, that's just incorrect, because the human body is made to eat animal fats. So, we shouldn't get too confused there. If it's ethical, religious reasons, great, but health reasons, the healthiest diet is the most balanced and diverse diet.
Yeah, and it's when you look at people who've been chronically dieting, or, maybe for a show, especially women, we shouldn't go that low fat, because we need fat for our hormones, which we've talked about. You need cholesterol. We need fat to make sex hormones. So you'll often see if someone is has very low fat in their diet, that their hormones suffer a lot. Maybe their period will stop, or they've got very low low progesterone.
Thyroid function's gone.
Thyroid. So it's I generally never let any of my clients' fat go below 50 grams.
I've only got one person. I was just thinking this. I've got one person under 50 grams, and that's only because they're 4'11".
Oh, well,
so their general input is a lot less.
Yeah.
So, but nearly everyone. I don't take men, women. I don't like to take below that sort of 50 gram mark. Yeah, it is a bit of a cursory number, but the fact is, you need good fats, and you can see it straight away. I've seen people who've been chronically dieting, and you can see just looking at them that their fat levels are too low because their hair looks dry, their skin looks dry, and that's just a visual tell.
Yeah, because a lot of research says 0.3 to 0.5 grams per pound. Like more than 0.5, you're just pushing it and getting extra calories. Your body would really, the fats that wouldn't really be used, just be storage. So it's 0.3 to 0.5.
I think I read we need a minimum of all our energy input needs to be 1.2% needs to be from an essential fatty acid for our bodies to even work.
Yeah.
Nice.
1.2%. So, when you add in all the carbs and fibers and other fats, 1.2% is super important. And that's just some EFAs, your essential fatty acids. Because otherwise we're not going to get the biological function. We're not going to be able to. We'd probably just die, actually.
Yeah, well, you need it for your brain. You need it for your cell membranes. I mean, often, like, if you're low fat, your mood is pretty bad because if you remember, I was saying, like, you need those, those omegas for the fluidity in your cell membrane, for such neurochemicals like serotonin, which is happy hormone, to go across and do its job. Low fat people are well, I'm
it just shows you, like, low carbs not good, low fat's not good, and when we get onto protein, I'm sure we'll end up saying low protein. So it is balance and diversity. It's not like it's the easiest concept. Like, obviously, when you're trying to lose body fat, we mix up the numbers a little bit just to go calories in versus calories out. But essentially, I always still encourage people to have a relatively diverse diet within that energy in window.
And I think that's why, even like for vegetarians, it's very important that they supplement, because a lot of
The thing is, with vegetarians, and I've got vegetarian, I was going through, like, when I was programming and putting a plan together, saying, like, we need to combine these vegetable sources, get all the amino acids. You've just got to be careful because you end up with a lot more calories.
Yeah.
So therefore, you've got to watch your energy out and make sure that's matching. Because the realization is, you've got to be even more diverse as a vegetarian.
Oh yeah.
You've got to have all these different, vegetable sources in each meal, which can then create a big old heap of food, which doesn't have to be high calorie, but it's nutrient dense and it's hard to eat. Yeah. That's because it is nutrient dense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, like, when we've talked about supplements before, would do well from supplementing with an omega-3, because modern day diets do tend to be higher in saturated fats and the omega-6s. So a good quality, like we've said, omega-3 supplement is a good idea.
I always tell all my clients 3 things: vitamin D, omega, probably a multivitamin, because when you're in dieting, it's easy to miss out nutrients. So that's why vitamin, multivitamins in that. But generally, top 2, D3, because most people work inside and spend long hours inside their offices. But then the oils is because people don't eat enough fatty fish.
Mm-hmm.
And as we said, like, fatty fish is. I say if you have 3 portions of fatty fish a week, you do not need that supplement.
Yeah.
But no one I know eats fatty fish, unless I do know one person, and that's because they get salmon into their restaurant. So they eat a lot of salmon, but that's fine. But as I said, not a perch. That's a fish. That's a fish for Kenya. Yeah. You want a fatty fish? I tell my clients, buy them a Nile perch in Carrefour or wherever.
Well, you're probably doing, the environment a favor, because especially in Lake Victoria, where they've taken over and they've eaten all the indigenous fish.
Yeah.
Well, 100%. And exactly right. And it's coming from more local sources rather than things like tuna, salmon that has to be
Flown in.
Yeah.
Okay, Carrefour. Well, we're going shopping today. Going to get some Nile perch.
Nile perch is good.
I'll ask my guy from City Market,
But I
because there's
love
always
salmon.
tilapia. But Nile
tilapia
perch
is not
seems to
fatty.
be.
The problem with tilapia is it eats garbage. I mean, they're in stagnant ponds half the time.
Yeah, that's the
don't
problem.
trust tilapia.
Yeah.
Because they eat, their flesh is made of what they eat.
Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of pond fishing now here, so you're not sure if it's
We got tilapia in our dam.
Oh no.
But we don't. It's just natural. We're not feeding. But like I know pretty much some of the big down Quarry Lane and stuff. There's some big tilapia pools there owned by a politician, and they take the water out of what's it called? The little stream that runs through where the Primate Research Centre is.
The Mbagathi.
Yeah.
No, every offshoot, that little stream. That's where they pump the water out to fill their pools.
Their ponds.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why we say, if you can have pasture raised and fed meat, because a lot of toxins are stored in the fat. So if you can get grass fed.
Well, old Pagetta good for that. If you go to Gourmet Meats in Yaya, all that meat's old Pagetta.
Yeah.
Also Marandat meat, although it's way more expensive. That's all pasture fed.
Yeah.
Marandat. I don't know how many Marandat shops there are. There's one near me in Navasha, but it's a big ranch just outside Navasha. But that's all grass fed ranch beef.
Yeah. No, I mean I think we're quite lucky here in that the beef quality, the meat quality is generally pretty good, and there's not too much that horrible factory farming.
Kenya exports a lot of meat actually because of that reason.
It's like a good point you said, where, because I've had the question where guys are always like, what does it matter? Is it grass-fed, corn-fed? And it's like Claire said, it's all the toxins get stored in the fat. So you can see why.
That's the only thing you got to be careful with cattle is antibiotics, steroid usage in commercial farming. But as you said, Kenya's slightly different in the way farming's done. It's a lot less. It's not feedlotting like in America. They feedlot cattle farming, and I know a bit about it because my granddad was a cattle farmer. So feedlotting is corn-fed, pretty much sitting in a trough, getting big and fat. But because they're not exercising so much, you end up injecting steroids and stuff to keep muscle mass high, and antibiotics because they get sick. Because there's so many in a small location.
And stress.
Yeah, and that affects. Imagine eating that since maybe as a teenager, but it'll affect you in the long run.
And it is. You do taste the difference. Like, as in, you can tell when the meat's been well raised, and also it's been humanely slaughtered.
Yeah.
Because if you I don't know, when an animal's stressed, everything.
Yeah, it tends.
All muscle fibers tighten.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I think it's if you can, obviously it depends on your budget and your ethics and all of that. But in Kenya, again, we are lucky enough that you can source grass-fed, sort of more free-range meat without, paying an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
But again, if it is more expensive, you've got to think, is that worth it to you? Is the quality of food important?
Exactly.
Like for us, it is. We don't go out partying. Right now, we're not going on holiday. So we do tend to spend a bit more on higher quality meats.
Definitely.
Like I'll try and get salmon every 7 to 10 days, just once a week, but I supplement with omega-3. Like our eggs are free range. So you can again, it's all completely personal, but it's always good to know, why is it better? You hear it's better, but if you don't know why, like, well, can't really be asked. But if
the same with fish, like you can taste the difference between bar and open water Atlantic salmon. You can taste the difference, and the colour's different. But the farm stuff's really pink because they put colouring in food that we feed the salmon.
It's, I remember at one point you couldn't even get tilapia here. It was from China, and it just looked and tasted like nothing.
Yeah, plastic.
Yeah.
I was like, is this even fish?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, you don't know, do you?
Is it? That's like the fake eggs that they make. You know, that's not even.
I always say, if you can, and you've got the ability, especially like somewhere where I live in the Basha, if we get goat, we know who we buy. Richard, the farmer, who's got his Maasai herders around here, he's got massive heads of goat. You know, he sells me goat. But like same with farmers, don't, you know, find a local, you know, cattle producer and go. People are always happy to chat. They're good farmers. They're always happy to chat and show you what they've got going on. And then try and buy either direct or through where they slaughter it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I think that's a good place to end this episode on fats. So just a recap. Fats are key. They're a key macronutrient in our body. We need them for so much, for energy, cell membranes, you know, to transport those fat-soluble vitamins, hormone production. So, you know, low fat is not necessarily superior for fat loss. And you really want to try and balance the different types of fats. So we've got the saturated fats, which are sort of your animal fats, your dairy. You've got the unsaturated fats, which you can then break down into your monounsaturated fats, like olive oil. I think avocado is there as well. Polyunsaturated, which are your omegas, which are super important. So you've got your 3s, you've got your 6s. You want to balance those out if you can. And yeah, just really try and get a balance. Don't fear fat. And if you can, you know, just be a little bit more picky about your sources of fat. And actually, like in MyFitnessPal, you can see the breakdown of the different types of fats. You can see how much saturated, polyunsaturated, and mono and cholesterol as well that you eat. So if you can get super geeky and look in there as well. And just remember, we need cholesterol as well. You know, just going by what, you know, culture has been telling us, like, oh, cholesterol's bad, you know, saturated fats are bad, you know, just take a step back and like, we need these things, but in moderation. I think cholesterol, it's important to remember we actually make most of our cholesterol, you know, rather than from the diet. And as always, if you can, you know, a less processed diet is generally better for your overall health. Gents?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I guess every time there'll always be that one macronutrient people will try to make look bad. But if you have all the information you need and you understand your goals and what they do and why you're doing it, you'll never worry about, you know, all the.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more with Leon there. You know, don't be scared of fats. It is essential.
Yeah.
All that macros are essential. You know, just look at everything with, you know, balance and, you know, being moderate with things without going crazy over one thing or another. It's all about a balance. Mm-hmm. Don't be scared.
Exactly. And I think because fats, there are so many types. People are like, oh, good fat, bad fat. Oh, don't eat this, don't eat that. Like, I hope that we've broken it down so you kind of understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I love fats. Oh my. Yeah. I think we're going to have some sushi today and some salmon sushi today.
Oh, yeah.
That will be the weekly salmon dose.
The thing is, to get enough, it costs you a fortune. Because I'm like this. I love sushi. I eat so much, and then when you get the bill, you're like,
I know. Like, if it's just me, it's okay. But then when you're like, oh, I want sushi, I'm like, oh boy.
Like, oh crap.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, sushi gets me hungry because, like, when you have one of those little sushi little platter things, I'll smash it back and go, well, now I'm hungry.
Yeah, what next?
Yeah, it's true. So I love sushi for that. Like, if I go out, I love eating it because I never feel bloated or. But I do want to come home and I'm like, I could eat something else now.
It just gets me hungrier, and then I end up spending a fortune on sushi. So I seldom. I'll often have like a sushi thing as a starter rather than the main course. No, you can't do it as main course.
Oh dear. Well, we're going to treat ourselves to
Usually
some
a treat.
sushi today.
Yeah.
So yes, I hope everyone you've enjoyed this episode on fats, and we'll catch you next week. And we're going to talk about protein.
Yep.
Yeah.